everyone, welcome back. It has been a long time, but I'm back now and I have decided to try and focus more on the book side of things, but there'll be another few kind of house vlogs, daily life vlogs or whatever in the new year, so that's what I'm planning on doing. Hopefully I can get it done. It's a big year for us. I will discuss it in my next video, but yeah, it'll be a big year for us next year, so looking forward to it. But right now what I've decided to do is I am going to talk about the 23 books that I think deserve some recognition. There are also some books in here which do not deserve some recognition. There's only a few of them. So what's going to happen, I am going to start with physical books that I have, start with the 4 stars, then the 5 stars, then I'm going to talk about some ARC books. I'll explain what ARC is to you. And then I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 books that I did not kind of gel with this year. So yeah, that's what's going on. This is my 23 in 2023. The first book that I gave a 4-star this year, I have a lot of these books. This whole shelf behind me, as you can see, is by the same author, and it is Jacqueline Wilson. And the first book that I had read that I had given 4 stars this year was Dustbin Baby. Now, I don't know if anyone's read this. If you have, are you as traumatized as I was whenever you read it? This is kind of an older teen book. It is about this girl called April who has been adopted by a woman called Marion, and she basically wants to find her, not necessarily, well, yeah, I suppose it is her birth mother. She wants to kind of, you know, be familiar with where she comes from. I think it's her 14th birthday, and she basically skips school and goes back through her life, which is quite traumatizing. There should be a lot of trigger warnings for this. But yeah, if you have read this, let me know. I really enjoyed this book. I remember reading this book when I was younger, and I loved it then and I love it now. I just feel like it's so different. At the time it was so different from like Tracy Beaker, for example. Tracy Beaker was kind of lighthearted and fun. This had some really serious issues in it. There should be loads of trigger warnings for this, but I gave this a 4-star because of the nostalgia, because of how different it was from the likes of Tracy Beaker, the likes of Bed and Breakfast Star, I think it's called, The Suitcase Kid. So different. But yes, if you haven't read this already, I would highly recommend my first 4-star of the year. This is Dustbin Baby by Jacqueline Wilson. The next 4-star read that I have is The Kite Runner. Ignore this little sticker. Basically, I got this book whenever I was in 6th year. I was 17, 18. I studied English literature and English language for A level, and we got this book given to us to study. So if I kind of, I don't know how to do this. If I flip through, you'll see there's a lot of bits highlighted. Some of my writing, you seen there, yep, like that. So yeah, we studied this book. It was in my school bag. It's really dog-eared and kind of tatty. I reread this for the first time since then. It had been over 10 years. I turned 30 next year, so it's been over 10 years since I've read this book, and I forgot just how beautiful it is. The descriptions of the places in this book are amazing. So yes, The Kite Runner, if you haven't read this before, it is about a guy who is kind of reflecting back on his life as a child, and his best friend Hassan, who, I'm trying to think of how to like explain the plot without giving too much away. Basically, Hassan is kind of a lesser status than Amir, but they're best friends. They love each other so much. They run kites. Amir kind of like uses the kite, and they do battles and things like that, and Hassan is the one who kind of runs and fetches the kites that Amir has cut down with his own kite. It's a very kind of big theme in this book. Something very tragic happens to Hassan, and the two boys kind of like part ways. There's a lot of other background things going on. It is a very, very good read. There's a lot of kind of very serious moments, very sad moments in this book, but I believe that this is probably one of the most heartwarming books that I've ever read in a long time. So yes, if you haven't already checked this out, it is by Khaled Hosseini. I am so sorry if I've butchered that. I am not great at pronouncing people's names. But yes, The Kite Runner, highly recommend. Also, there is a film. I'm pretty sure there's a film. If you haven't seen it, make sure to give it a watch. My next 4-star is kind of a controversial one because I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding this author, but my next read was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. As you can see, I'd read this book very thoroughly and made notes. I have also written a load of things on post-it notes and things. I loved this book. This was a 4-star for me. It deals with very heavy themes. I think I like this book so much because if you've read it, you'll know what I'm about to say. I kind of identified with this book a lot. I can see myself as, you know, reflected in the main character of this book. A lot of the issues that were going on with this couple are familiar to me. There would be some trigger warnings for this book as well, so obviously make sure that you kind of read up on things like that before you buy or before you read these books. But I felt like this book hit me very hard. I had to kind of stop for a while and just kind of reflect on what was happening. Again, I know there's a lot of controversy around this author, but this is one of those things where this is a serious matter. Things like this actually happen to people, and I feel like it was a good enough read to be put in this video. So, All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. It's that kind of multi-narrative, which goes in the past, goes in the future, you know, kind of mixes between the two. It's about a couple and their struggles. I really can't really say anything more than that, but it was a very good read and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. My next 4-star read was The Shining by Stephen King. I had watched the movie, obviously I've seen the movie loads of times, and I decided that I wanted to read the book. I think I kind of got halfway through the book once and then just stopped. I don't really know why, but yeah, I brought this book to Florida with me whenever I went to Florida, and I read it on the plane, going there and going back, and I kind of finished last few chapters back at home. I really enjoyed this. I feel like there's so much more in this book that wasn't explained or wasn't shown in the film. If you don't already know, The Shining is all about Jack Torrance and his family who go to live in the Overlook Hotel for the winter season. Jack is the caretaker, and his wife Wendy and his son Danny go with him. There is something quite off about this hotel. Danny kind of has the ability to see things and experience things. He sees and experiences a lot of strange things in the hotel, and it's basically just the father's descent into complete and utter madness. I really enjoyed it. If you've seen the film, you'll know how strange it is. The book is even better. If you haven't seen the film, give it a watch. I recommend the film as well as the book. This was another 4-star read for me. This was The Shining by Stephen King. I'm getting into my 5-star reads now. So these were my 4-star reads. These are now my 5-star reads. Starting off strong with Animal Farm. Anybody that knows me knows I absolutely love this book. A lot of people have read this in school, I think, for like, you know, their literature, English literature thing. We never read this. We read Of Mice and Men instead. So I didn't know anything about this until quite recently, within the last 3 years or so. And I read this book and I absolutely loved it. It is kind of written like a children's book, but not really. So basically it's about a farm with animals on it, and some of the pigs are kind of not happy with how the other animals have been treated, and they think now is the time to kind of rise up against the farmer, the humans, and start their own farm, animal farm. There's a list of rules that the pigs have created. All the other animals have to follow them, but suddenly and very slowly the pigs start kind of doing their own thing, and a few animals kind of become wise to it, and it's just basically what happens then as this story progresses. It is a short story. It's a very short story. I don't even think it's 100 pages. I think it's only 90, it's 101 pages. It is a short read. It is probably my favourite book, one of my favourite books of all time. Definitely recommend Animal Farm by George Orwell. My next 5-star reads were actually a group of 4 books from a series. If you say it doesn't count, I don't care. This is my video. I'm doing it this way. So I am obsessed, and I mean obsessed, with The Haunted Mansion. Not the Eddie Murphy movie. I don't talk about that. I am obsessed with the ride, and if you may know, I went to Disney in Florida with my family in July. Last week of July, first week of August, and we went on the Haunted Mansion, I would say about 8 or 9, maybe 10 times. I don't know. I am obsessed with it. I know the whole spiel off by heart. I collected a lot of Haunted Mansion things, and I found out that there's Haunted Mansion novels, so I obviously had to have them. The first one I bought is Tales from the Haunted Mansion, Volume 1, The Fearsome Foursome. So these are very mysterious books, as told by mansion librarian Amicus Arcane. So I assume these are children's books, but there are quite some dark themes. Not like extreme, but there's quite a lot of dark things that happen. I love this book, and the last one are kind of done in the similar style. This is kind of like a material-y kind of thing, and I don't know if you can tell, maybe not, but all the pages are like old, kind of old-fashioned. The artwork in this book, let me see if I can find anything. The artwork in this book is amazing. Look at me trying to peek over the book to see you guys. But yes, all of these stories are told by the Haunted Mansion librarian, Amicus Arcane. In this book, 4 children, the fearsome, oh, I nearly hit myself in the face with that. The fearsome foursome kind of come into the Haunted Mansion to look around, and they meet Amicus Arcane, who then tells them stories about themselves. So there's some really creepy things that happen in this, and I highly recommend them. Even if you've never seen Haunted Mansion, the movie, or been on the ride, it doesn't matter. If you have been on the ride, there's a lot of kind of references to the ride in these books, which I think is really good. But yeah, I'm obsessed with these. I love these. The Haunted Mansion. Tales from the Haunted Mansion. Highly, highly, highly recommend. This is book 1. I have book 2 here. This is Tales from the Haunted Mansion, Volume 2, Midnight at Madame Leota's. My only criticism of this is that Madame Leota wasn't really mentioned in this book. I love Madame Leota. She's probably my favourite character from the Haunted Mansion. Right next to Constance Hatchaway, that's quite hard to say. She's my second favourite character, but Madame Leota is my first. This is amazing. I love all of these books. It's pretty much the same kind of concept. Amicus Arcane just kind of says more, talks about more stories from the people who live in the Haunted Mansion, the 99 happy haunts who live in the Haunted Mansion, which is amazing. It's just so good. So that is the second one. The third one I have here, Volume 3, Grim Grinning Ghosts. If you know anything about the Haunted Mansion, you'll know about the 3 hitchhikers. You'll know about the ghosts in the graveyard towards the end of the ride. Again, Amicus Arcane narrates, tells the different stories, talks about some of the ghosts that are in the graveyard, such as, oh, I can't remember his name. He is the mummy that drinks the tea. You'll know what I mean if you've been on it. But just more creepy stories. Grim Grinning Ghosts, book number 3. Book number 4, Memento Mori. So this is done the same way as the first book, with this little like fabric-y bit. This is the final book. Apologies, that is my computer making a noise when it shouldn't be. Let's see. As I was saying, this is Memento Mori. This is the 4th book in the series, I was going to say series, and this is the final stories of some of the other ghosts that live in the Haunted Mansion. You find out about Prudence Pock, who is the poet, and it's all about how someone is interviewing her, and she's kind of like telling some of the stories. They have to find a new librarian in this book. Amicus Arcane decides to retire, so the ending of this book is all about them finding a new librarian. If you haven't read these, I highly recommend them. That is the 4 books from the Tale of the Haunted Mansion series. Very impressed. These were all 5 stars for me. Another 5-star read was a book that I absolutely loved, and if anyone has seen The Nightmare Before Christmas and knows anything about Sally, this book is all about what this author kind of thought would happen after the end of Nightmare Before Christmas. So basically at the end, Jack and Sally share a kiss on the creepy hill. So basically this book, Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, this is by Shay Earnshaw. It kind of focuses on Sally. So Jack and Sally are married, something kind of happens, another one of the worlds is kind of opened up. So obviously whenever Jack kind of goes into the circle of trees, there's all these different worlds. Sally goes and explores some of these different worlds. Something happens, she needs to save the day. So basically it's so good. It's a retelling, or like a kind of reimagination of what would happen at the end of Nightmare Before Christmas. Some references to the movie. I highly recommend this. I loved every second of it. Didn't want to put it down. I think this is kind of like a young adult kind of book. But yeah, I loved this so much. This is Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. This book Lee and I actually read, not together, but I read it and then he read it, then I read it. And whenever I was reading something else at the time and he was reading this and he kept trying to tell me things and I was like, no, don't tell me, I want to read it myself. This was amazing. I would have given this more than 5 stars if I could. So I love mysteries and crime and thrillers and things like that. This is James Thompson's Snow Angels. This was so good. Basically it's about a detective. A woman was found murdered. Basically it's all just about this detective trying to, find out who'd murdered this woman. There are so many twists in this book. The final twist was amazing. I think Lee was away whenever I had read this, like the twist bit, and I actually texted him and I was just like, oh my god. But yes, this is amazing. Snow Angels by James Thompson. This was definitely a 5-star read from me and Lee. Again, another Colleen Hoover book. I loved this book so much. The kind of the twist, I still think about this book. I don't even know. I don't have any words for this. I could not stop thinking about this. It freaked me out to the point of no return. I was trying to explain to Lee what it was all about. I was not making any sense. Verity. Colleen Hoover's Verity. What? If you've read this, you'll know. I have literally no words. I don't know. I don't know. I can't even give you a plot summary other than a woman moves in to a house with a husband and wife because the wife is ill, and the woman that moves in is trying to like finish this woman's book or something like that. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know. I can't even. This was amazing, and I wish this is one of those books that I wish I could reread for the first time again, because I still think about it to this day, and I think I read this in January. I think I read this quite early on in the year. Amazing. Utterly amazing. 5 stars. Highly recommend it. The final 5-star physical book that I have here was from a series, but I feel like this book was the best out of the series. So again, this is my shelf of Jacqueline Wilson books. As you can see, I loved the Hetty Feather series. So there were Hetty Feather, there was Sapphire Battersea, Emerald Star, Diamond, and Little Stars. There's 5 books in the series, but my favourite was Diamond. I love this book because I love the whole series. Like the whole series as a whole overall would get 4 stars. But this book was told from Diamond's point of view, and it was just different to see, a different point of view other than Hetty's. And then towards the end of this book, Diamond and Hetty's stories kind of like come together. So this book is all about this little girl called Diamond, who ends up joining, not through her own kind of wish, joining the circus. She is put with these 3 boys here. She's supposedly their younger sister. She's a little fairy. She's supposed to do acrobatics and things like that. This clown here, his name is Beepo. He kind of owns Diamond now. But yeah, it's a lot of there should be trigger warnings for this as well. Like this is quite quite heavy stuff as well. But yeah, I love the way the two stories kind of like collide at one point, and then we're like back on track with the rest of the story in the series. So yeah, Diamond by Jacqueline Wilson. Highly recommend it, 5 stars. So now I'm going to talk about some of the ARC books that I have reviewed over, well, I started ARC reading in October. Basically, an ARC or an ARC book is an advanced reader copy. And what that means is that I had signed up for book tours, and the author would send me the book, I would read the book, and I would review the book before it's published. Sometimes the books already have been published, and this is just for like, you know, interaction to get people talking about it. There have been some books that have been great, some books that have been not so great, but for this, I'm going to be talking, in this section, I'm going to be talking about the books that I really, really liked, and I'm going to tell you about the author, a little bit about the plot, just the same format as this, only about kind of ebooks, because I read them all on my tablet. I don't have a Kindle, I read on my tablet, which is about twice the size of a normal Kindle, but we won't get into that. So yes, in the next section, I shall talk about my ARC books, and then at the end of the video, finally, I will talk about the books that I didn't really like, and I'll let you know why. So yes, on with the ARC books. My absolute favourite ARC book that I've read, as I said, I've been reading since October. It's now December, so 2 months. The best one that I have read was The Perfect Nanny. This one had me hooked right away, like literally from the start. There were so many, I did not know who to trust. I didn't know who to believe, didn't know whose version of what story I should have been listening to, but this was amazing. I highly recommend it. If you love thrillers, it took a turn. It took a turn that I did not see coming towards the end. I loved it, and I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars to the author. I posted it on my Instagram. I talked about it for ages. I discussed it in work. I talked about it with Lee. It was amazing. I loved it so much. The Perfect Nanny, she's not what she seems, or is she? You don't know. You don't know who to believe. You don't know who to trust. And I think that's what I loved the most about this, because I love thrillers. I love crime. I love mysteries, all like that. So yes, The Perfect Nanny was definitely a 5 star for me. The next ARC book that I absolutely loved this year was The Serial Killer's Son. Now, obviously I love mysteries and thrillers and things like that. This book didn't know who to believe, didn't know what was going on. It was one of those books where I was reading it and I was thinking, have I missed something? Because parts of it didn't make sense. Not like in the way of, there was bits of the story that you weren't getting. It wasn't like the author was writing it and it wasn't making sense. It was like the story was like, wait, did that happen? Did that not happen? Am I thinking of the wrong thing? You know, it was that kind of thing. Confusing, but in a good way. The ending of this blew my mind. And I said this, I actually reached out to the author and spoke to them about this. My mind was blown. I loved this so much. The twist, what actually happened was mental. I can't fault it at all. Loved it so much. And I highly recommend The Serial Killer's Son. If you ever want to read it, please do. I highly, highly recommend it. The last ARC book that I'm going to talk about was Enchanted Realms. If you love Beauty and the Beast, if you're a very Disney princess, if you love things like that, don't read this. It'll ruin it for you. Not in a bad way. Basically, there was a lot of elements of Beauty and the Beast in this. A girl kind of gets taken to a castle, someone's kind of home. They're kept there against their will. There's a little bit of a monster kind of thing going on. Yeah, it was just so weird, like, but in a good way. I've never really read fantasy before, and this was kind of fantasy. It was also smut. I've never read smut before, but here we are. If you don't know what smut is basically sex. It's sex, that's what it is. So basically this was fantasy sex. The main character, he had a name that I couldn't pronounce. Then whenever the female main character couldn't pronounce his name, and I kind of read the name the way she said his name, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do now. He was amazing, such a good character. There's a lot of heavy themes in this one as well, maybe some trigger warnings, but yeah, this one was great. It kind of was fast paced and then it wasn't, and then it was fast paced, you know, it was one of those. I highly recommend that too. That was Enchanted Realms. Now we're at the part of the video where I'm going to talk about some of the books that I did not like. These could be for various reasons, which I will discuss. If I don't like a book, I sell it. I have Vinted, I sell books and clothes and things like that on Vinted, so I don't actually have a physical copy of these books. So hopefully Lee can put in a photo here somewhere of the book cover, just in case you ever come across it. So yes, let's get started. The first book that I did not like was a book called It's Me, Charlie. So I actually really like horror. I really like splatterpunk, as it's called, gore, things like that. I'm a big horror fan, slasher fan, you know, that kind of thing. So I have books that are like that as well. Believe it or not, you can get slasher books. This one, the story was good. It was very short. The premise of it was good. I just felt like the writing wasn't great. There was a lot of grammatical errors, a lot of spelling errors. It was okay. I mean, it was nothing special. I feel like it was just gory for the sake of being gory, you know? I don't know. I was bored, which was a shame because I was quite looking forward to it. Basically, this guy, Charlie, is obsessed with this lady who is on Instagram, and he has made a fake Instagram account to kind of speak to this woman on as Charlie. He then ends up kidnapping her, and it just kind of escalates from there. Again, very short, very abrupt ending. I just wasn't impressed. I'm sorry, I just wasn't impressed. Sorry, I'm laughing because I know what's coming next. The next book that I didn't really like was, right, hear me out. I saw someone on TikTok talking about this book around Thanksgiving. In the UK, we don't really celebrate Thanksgiving, so I just thought, oh, I'll give it a go. This book was 13 pages, 13, and I don't really know how to explain it. It was a smut book, that's all you need to know, and the title is Stuffed by the Were Turkey. I'll just let that sink in. I have no words. That's 13 pages, 10 minutes of my life that I'll never get back again. It was weird. It was, yeah, I don't know what to say. Didn't like it. It was just weird. Not that I didn't like it, it was just that weird that I couldn't even comprehend how I felt about it. But yeah, moving on. That was my second one. The third book that I did not like at all this year was the Pallbearers Club. Oh my god, I was bored. I was so bored and I could not wait to finish it. I really didn't want to DNF any books this year, but I really did not like this at all. It just took so long to get to the point. There was like one thing happening and then one thing running parallel happening to it. Oh my god, it was just really boring. And I really wanted to like it because it was one of the books that I got in the Abominable Book Club subscription box, so I was really looking forward to reading it. It just wasn't great. It was just so boring. I can't even tell you what it was about because basically, I don't know, it was a guy who'd started a club outside school where these kids went to people's funerals to stand at people who didn't have anybody at their funerals, and then that was kind of the end of that. And then it just kind of escalated from there. I don't know, progressed from there. It wasn't great. It was boring. I'm sorry. The next book was actually a book that a lot of people were talking about this year. It was called Pen Pal. I I got it on Amazon. I was really excited to read it because I'd heard so many good things about it, that it was really creepy, really weird. I just didn't get those vibes from it. I think maybe because the books that I read prior to it were all very extreme. I don't know. It was written really weirdly. The ending was weird. I don't know. I think, was it meant to be a horror or like a suspense kind of thing? I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't even tell you the plot because I can't remember. That's how forgettable it was. All I know is I think it's about this guy reading, he's either reading letters or writing letters. Or no, I don't know. I can't remember. I remember like bits of it, but I can't remember the actual premise of it. But yeah, sorry, just wasn't my favorite. The next book that I didn't really like was Coraline. Now, I love the movie Coraline, and I thought, oh, maybe there'll be loads of different things that are in the book that weren't in the film. No, didn't like it. Thought it was boring. I know it's a kid's book, but I've read kids' books. I have a whole shelf of kids' books there that I love. But Coraline, it just didn't do it for me. I'm sorry. I got it in a charity shop for like 50p. But it just, I don't know. The film was more fast-paced than the book. But yeah, it's one of those things where you shouldn't compare the two, but you kind of have to. The film was way better than the book. The final book that I did not really get on well with this year was a book called Rebel Rose, which, like Enchanted Realms, it's kind of based on Beauty and the Beast, like that kind of scenario, that kind of aesthetic. This is not a smut book, this is not a fantasy book, it's like a kind of, I don't know, a young adult book. It was boring. It was very political, it was historical, it just, I don't know, I really wanted it to be over, and it took ages to be over. I read this kind of early on in the year. It was probably like January, February time. Can't remember what it was about. I just remember I hated it, and I stopped that book, and this is going to sound awful, that book made me stop reading for like 3 months because I knew I had to finish it, because I kept telling myself I'm not going to DNF any books this year, and I was so close to doing it, and I didn't read for like 3 months because I could not bring myself to finish this book. But yeah, I didn't like it at all, and I'm really, really sorry if you did. I'm really sorry if you liked any of these books that I said that I didn't like, but I guess it takes all sorts, and I just like different books than you do, and that's fine, but I just really didn't like that one. So finally, I just wanted to give a special shout out to a book. This was written by Judith Sonnet. This was a short book. This was a splatterpunk slasher murderer kind of book. Loved it, like to the point of I've now kind of downloaded most of the books on Kindle Unlimited from this author. So this book was called No One Rides for Free, and it's basically a mum and her children who are driving. I think the mum's taking the children back to college or taking them home from college, can't really remember. But this man gets into their car and kind of holds them all hostage. It's very, very graphic, very, very extreme, but I like that. I like that in a book. I was very, very impressed. I loved it. I didn't want it to finish. It was very short. So I was very impressed with it. A lot of trigger warnings for that one. Please make sure that you read them before you commit to reading the book. But Judith Sonnet was an author that I discovered this year that I will be reading more from. So thank you for that, if you are somehow watching this video. If you are, hello. I really enjoyed your book. But yes, so that was probably another 5-star I would have given it. Just wanted to give it a little shout out. It wasn't an ARC book, it was one that I read on Kindle Unlimited. Thank you all for joining me. Here we are at the end of the video. So yeah, what did you make of my list? Is there any books on my list that you have read? Any books that you are that are on your TBR? Any books that you're looking forward to reading next year? I have a 265 long TBR list. Yeah, so wish me luck with that. I hope everyone has had a lovely year, especially on Bookstagram or BookTok or whatever you're on. Hopefully there will be more books that we can all enjoy coming out this year. Yes, I might make a video on the books that I am looking forward to reading next year. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!